What if I told you that America was built on a principle that would spark the greatest revolution in history, yet today that same principle has been completely turned on its head? The story of American taxation isn't just about money. It's about freedom, rebellion, and the ongoing battle between government power and individual liberty. Picture this. It's 1765, and a simple piece of paper requires a tax stamp. Seems harmless, right? Wrong. That innocent-looking stamp would ignite a fire that burned across 13 colonies and changed the world forever. But here's what most people don't realize. The colonists weren't just angry about paying taxes. They were furious about something much deeper. Let me take you back to where it all began. Before America was even America, the relationship between Britain and its colonies was like a business partnership gone bad. For decades, Britain had followed what historians call salutary neglect, basically ignoring colonial affairs as long as trade flowed smoothly. The colonies grew prosperous, developed their own economic systems, and got comfortable making their own decisions. Then everything changed. The French and Indian War from 1754 to 1763 left Britain drowning in debt. We're talking about £130 million, which in today's money would be astronomical. King George and Parliament looked across the Atlantic and saw their colonies flourishing while Britain struggled financially. Their solution seemed logical: make the colonies pay for their own defense and help cover war costs. But here's where it gets interesting. The Sugar Act of 1764 was actually a reduction in taxes on molasses, yet it sparked massive outrage. Why? Because for the first time, Britain was seriously enforcing tax collection. They sent customs officials with real authority and naval ships to stop smuggling. The colonists realized their era of economic freedom was ending. The Stamp Act of 1765 took things to a whole new level. This wasn't just a trade tax. It hit everyone directly. Legal documents, newspapers, playing cards, dice. Everything needed a stamp. College degrees, marriage licenses, even pamphlets criticizing the government required stamps. The tax reached into every colonist's daily life. Here's what made colonists absolutely furious. They had no voice in these decisions. No taxation without representation wasn't just a catchy slogan. It represented a fundamental principle they believed in. English citizens living in England could vote for parliament members who imposed taxes. Colonists couldn't. They were being taxed by a government they couldn't influence. The colonial response was swift and creative. They organized boycotts that devastated British merchants. The Sons of Liberty formed secret societies that used intimidation and sometimes violence against tax collectors. Women organized spinning circles to produce homemade cloth instead of buying British textiles. These weren't random acts of rebellion. They were coordinated economic warfare. Britain tried different approaches. The Townshend Acts of 1767 taxed imported goods like glass, paint, paper, and tea. When colonists boycotted these items, Britain repealed most taxes but kept the tea tax as a symbol of their authority. That decision would prove catastrophic. The Boston Tea Party of 1773 wasn't really about tea prices. Tea was actually cheaper with the tax than smuggled alternatives. It was about the principle. The Tea Act gave the British East India Company a monopoly that threatened colonial merchants. When Samuel Adams and his associates dumped 342 chests of tea into Boston Harbor, they were making a statement about economic freedom and self-determination. Britain's response, the Intolerable Acts of 1774, pushed colonists past the point of no return. These laws closed Boston Harbor, revoked Massachusetts' charter, allowed British officials accused of crimes to be tried in England, and expanded the hated Quartering Act. Each measure felt like tyranny to people who had governed themselves for generations. By 1775, taxation disputes had evolved into something much larger. The First Continental Congress met to coordinate resistance. Local committees of correspondence shared information and organized boycotts. Minutemen trained for military action. What started as tax protests had become a full-scale independence movement. The Declaration of Independence listed taxation among the colonists' grievances. But notice it wasn't the primary complaint. The founders objected to being taxed without our consent. The process mattered as much as the burden. They established a principle that would define American government. Taxation requires representation and consent of the governed. After independence, the new nation struggled with taxation immediately. The Articles of Confederation gave Congress no power to tax, creating financial chaos. States issued their own currencies, imposed tariffs against each other, and refused to fund the federal government. This crisis led directly to the Constitutional Convention of 1787. The Constitution granted Congress broad taxation powers while maintaining the principle of representation. The new government could impose tariffs, excise taxes, and direct taxes, but everything had to go through elected representatives. The founders created a system where taxation and representation were permanently linked. Early American tax policy focused heavily on tariffs and excise taxes. The Whiskey Rebellion of 1794 showed that even Americans would resist taxes they considered unfair, but the government's response proved it could enforce tax collection while maintaining democratic legitimacy. Throughout the 19th century, taxation remained relatively light by modern standards. The federal government relied primarily on tariffs and land sales. The Civil War changed everything, introducing the first income tax in 1861 as a temporary emergency measure. This precedent would prove crucial decades later. The 16th Amendment in 1913 permanently authorized federal income taxation without apportionment among states. This fundamentally altered the relationship between citizens and government, creating the modern tax system we recognize today. What began as opposition to taxation without representation had evolved into a complex system where representation theoretically ensures consent. Today's tax system would astound the founders. Federal, state, and local taxes touch virtually every economic transaction. Income taxes, payroll taxes, sales taxes, property taxes, inheritance taxes. The variety would shock people who rebelled over stamp duties. The irony is striking. America was founded by people who considered moderate British taxes tyrannical. Yet modern Americans accept tax burdens the founders would have found unimaginable. The principle of representation still exists, but the practical connection between consent and taxation has become increasingly abstract. Understanding this history reveals that taxation debates aren't really about money. They're about power, representation, and the social contract between government and citizens. The American Revolution established that legitimate taxation requires genuine consent through meaningful representation. Whether modern tax systems meet that standard remains one of our most important ongoing political questions. The colonists who dumped tea into Boston Harbor would be amazed to see what their tax rebellion ultimately created, both the freedoms it secured and the complexities it produced.